let's start with Greenbelt as a company,
Yeah.
or as an
NGO,
organization,
yeah.
sorry. What exactly are you set to do?
Well, the Green Belt movement was founded in 1977. So we have been around for over 40 years. We are celebrating 40 years this year. And over those years, we have worked with communities in matters relating to conservation of the environment, especially through tree planting. And our role has been mobilizing those communities to take action because of the many challenges that they face in their communities. Environment is just one way to address those challenges. If you talk about food security, if you talk about water, issues to do with energy, if you go through tree planting, you're able to tackle many of those challenges. And that's how GBM has been able to engage communities to address their challenges, to address the problems that they face every day. So for us, we mobilize communities. In those groups, they are able to sit down and identify what are the challenges that we face in our daily lives. And from that, they can take action. We don't introduce any other solution to them, but they kind of take the lead in solving their own problems. Tree planting is just one of the ways that they handle those problems.
All right. We've been having serious cases when it comes to mountain deforestation. And you've just said you sit down with the communities to help them see which is the best way forward in dealing with the different challenges and the different problems that they have. Now, what would you say is the biggest problem?
I would say forests majorly are undervalued, or to put in a much simpler way, the value of forests is just put to how you can cut a tree and sell timber. But if we can be able to value trees differently, because there are many other benefits that forests provide, we have not been able to say, beside the economic value, how can you put the cultural values, the environmental values into money? In that way, you look at environment differently, and you'll be able to see that by conserving, you can actually earn more than just cutting. Right now, people are earning money because of degradation, but there is a way we can earn money through conservation. And that's how we are approaching environmental conservation, through community engagement. And actually, it's in the Constitution, in the Forest Act, that communities need to be engaged in matters relating to conservation of those forests, and be able to take part in benefits sharing with regard to those forests. But again, we need to empower those communities, to train them, to understand exactly when they are coming into the management of forests, what role do they play?
And that was my next question to you, Paul. How is it that deforestation is a factor that is very important in this country, but at the same time, you've said forests are undervalued. Why is it that the people, the citizens of this country, and especially the different communities that are in these areas that stay enclosed or in this forest, why is it that we cannot see this, especially after the fact that Kenya as a nation is looking forward to having at least 10% of forestation?
Yeah.
So what is blocking? Why can't we see how important deforestation is and how badly it can affect the country?
Well, there are some very good cases where communities have been engaged, and where the forest has been able to provide the necessary benefits that accrue from forests. If you go to Garindare, on the northern part of Kenya, you'll find communities well engaged. In our case, in other forests, though the communities were engaged, but there was no time to train them. What are they coming into the forest to do? There was no time to empower them. And therefore, many of them went just to take, to abuse the forest, so to speak. But there should have been ways that those communities should have been trained, so that by the time they go to manage their forests, they know why they are doing that. But now, when we engage them just like that, in their mind, they will think that they have just been engaged to go and use the forest, or to misuse the forest. But communities need training. There are areas where we have done serious community trainings, And people even adjacent to forests have been able to leave the forest alone. They are able to sustain themselves in their farms. They have agroforestry trees in their farms. They are able to cultivate their land sustainably, and they are able to plan their land well, and they have no business going into the forest to extract materials. But this has not been the case in our forests. So we need to invest more in training those communities.
It's training is the issue.
Yes.
All right. Now, I'm sure you've had you've heard, or maybe you are part of the plan to have CCTVs in a forest. What is your take on that?
Well, for the Greenbelt movement, we always talk of a social fence.
All right.
Empowering communities, because those communities, some of them have lived with those natural resources for generations. And all of a sudden, they don't wake up and go to the forest. There are underlying issues that take them to the forest, that force them to go to the forest. If you address those issues, you don't need CCTVs.
What are these issues?
For instance, if a woman goes to the forest to look for firewood, what can you offer? What incentives can you offer, or what alternatives can you offer that woman doesn't have to go to the forest? If you're talking about communities grazing the forest, what other alternatives can you offer so that communities can still benefit by rearing zero-grazed cattle and maximize their products than taking a whole lot of cattle in the forest with no major benefits? So we believe in empowering communities to take care of the forest, because those communities will still live in those adjacent to those forests, and even if you use CCTV and the communities are not well engaged, there still lies the problem. Yeah. And
apart from training these different communities, of course, he's just assured us that CCTV is really not the best way forward. But apart from training these different communities, when it comes to conservation of the forest and of the different plantations that they have around them, what would be the best way forward to keep them away from deforestation?
Well, like I said, there are things that take them to the forest, that force them to go to the forest.
Yes.
And in my opening remarks, I talked about valuing of forests. If we can be able, for instance, in Kenya, forests have been recorded to only contribute not more than 3% of the GDP. And that is based on extractive activities of the forest. Timber sale, cutting down trees. But if you look at ecotourism, is a major business. If you look at the water that comes to Nairobi, if you can value that, if you can put money into that, because that is also related to forest. You cannot detach fresh waters with the forest.
And that's my question, Paul.
Yeah.
You've made it very clear that you need to, there are other matters that lead this, the different people in these communities that are living with the forest, to the forest, and they end up cutting down trees. And you gave us a very nice example. There's a woman who needs firewood, yes? Yeah. So ataenda akate mti akuje, ajenge moto, or she'll start her fire. Yeah. So what is the best way forward? Just bringing it down to layman's terms, what is the best way forward? There's that woman who needs firewood. Yeah. There's that man who probably needs, he's gotten a good deal when it comes to mortise timber. So what is the best way forward?
We have other alternatives besides going to the forest. For instance, if communities can be able to appreciate agroforestry, to grow trees on their farms, that can take care of the need for firewood. Again, we also need to introduce efficient cook stoves, because you find a woman going to the forest with a whole load of and comes back with a whole load of firewood, only to last for a night. But if you introduce improved cook stoves, that load can take maybe half or a week. We also have other fast-growing species like bamboo. We have already piloted with the bamboo, and it's doing so well, so that communities can have alternatives. They don't have to go to the forest. They can sustain themselves in their farms, and the forest can be left alone for other environmental, hydrological functions, ecological functions, so that it doesn't just benefit a few. Because every society, the whole of the country depends on those forests.
Okay.
So it's a matter of bringing in alternatives and empowering communities in their farms to sustain themselves without necessarily going to the forest.
Okay, and with that said, knowing how important forests are to the country and the world as a whole, and let's say they were given the solution, as you said, you have bamboos, you guys are trying to push for the bamboo growing, and you also need to, the cook stoves, the different methods of energy need to be implemented. This is the cook stoves, you have mentioned that. Say all these things work, all the solutions that you guys are trying to bring in work. What type of punishment should one face if they were caught doing the act of deforestation? What is the best way forward?
I think the solution should lie more on incentives rather than punishment.
All right.
So that if you conserve the forest well, what do you get? What rewards do you get? Not just punishing them, because there are people working very hard to make sure that those forests exist.
All right.
What rewards do they have?
So you'd rather appreciate than...
Yeah,
okay.
We have a program with Nairobi Water Company and TNC where farmers who are involved in conservation get rewards, because that water is what sustains Nairobi. If they don't conserve their forests up there, Nairobi doesn't have water.
Yeah.
So part of that money that you pay as water bill goes to those communities to encourage them continue conserving the environment, planting more trees, but not necessarily punishing them. It's more better to appreciate them and to encourage them to conserve the environment.
All right.